All right, everyone, we got Coach Lanning here on the main stage. He'll give his opening comments here in just a second, then we'll open it up for Q&A. A reminder again, the microphone is there in the back. Just go ahead and step up there, state your name and affiliation, and we'll take your questions. Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, first off, I just want to tell everyone how honored and excited I am to be sitting on the stage right now as the head football coach at Oregon. Obviously, extremely fortunate to have great leadership at our university with our athletic director, Rob Mullins, our president, Schill. Excited about the direction of our program and excited about being part of the fastest growing brand in college football. Since 2010, there's been 9 teams that have played for a national championship, and fortunate enough that Oregon's done that twice. Multiple conference championships have been won at this place, and obviously we had 2.57 million viewers tune in every single week to watch our games, which is top 10 in the nation and best in our conference, which is obviously exciting. We've continued to recruit at a really high level. Excited to continue to bring great recruits to our place, and we have an innovative approach in the way we do that. One thing that I will say about all that success, though, is that's past success. And this is the 2022 team. And we have to be focused on what we're going to do in the year 2022 as a team and as staff. In fact, each one of those experiences is totally unique and different to us. So moving forward, one thing that certainly changed in this offseason for us is our team has a void. We're missing a brother in Spencer Webb, who we lost in a tragic accident. We've spent a lot of time together as a family and mourned his loss, and it's something that you certainly cannot replace. But time with the heart, it only grows fonder, and we want to live. I talked to our players about that moment. And Spencer, on your tombstone, there's a day when you were born, there's a day, when you pass. But what made Spencer special is how he lived that dash in between those two numbers. So we want to live and create a dash that's meaningful. And I think our Get Real sessions have been really beneficial to our team. We finished off our summer workouts with the Climb Up Spencer's Butte, which will be an annual tradition to honor him. And our theme this season as we move forward, as we honor Spencer, is really growth. I had the conversation with our team about the bamboo plant and how over time you'll water that plant every single day. And at times you don't see the growth. It hasn't come out of the ground. But at some point, that plant breaks ground and it grows exponentially. And I'm excited to see that investment into our team. I'm excited to see us continue to, build and, continue to grow in that effort as we focus on the process and the investment in our players. The expectations of our team, really outside of our room, it doesn't matter. We're focused on the opinions of the people in our program and collecting 24-hour wins. With that growth mindset. I also want to extend an extreme gratitude to our players in our program. It's been a pleasure to work with those guys day in and day out. They're true professionals. They love each other. We're focused on, we talk about it a lot, we call it power of unit and connection. That's been a big piece for us. Fortunately, I have the best staff in the nation. I feel really confident in that and was able to go collect some great players. I'm proud of the 2 players I was actually able to bring on this trip. Alex Forsyth, he's a seasoned veteran. Both these guys come here today as graduates, college graduates working on their second degrees, which is exciting for me. And obviously we talk about our investment in education, but those guys are great representation of our program. Alex has been here before, so I was able to lean on him to see what this day would look like. I'm really proud of DJ Johnson and the progress he's had this spring and the job he's done. So thrilled to have those guys represent our program here today. All that being said, I certainly couldn't pass the opportunity to recognize our first game, get to play a really familiar opponent in Georgia in a neutral site game in Atlanta. Certainly excited about going back and seeing some familiar faces with the goal of going there and getting to compete against a mentor and a friend in Kirby Smart. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Okay, go ahead. Just remember to state your name and affiliation, and please speak up, too, so we can hear you.
Yeah. Eric Scopel, 24/7 Sports. You spoke to growth there a moment ago. I guess just what kind of growth have you seen at the quarterback position this offseason, and how far into fall will it be a competition? Do you have a deadline of when you'd like to make a decision?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Just at the end of the day, you want to know you have quarterbacks in your program you think you can win with. And I think we have multiple guys that can do that, with Bo, Ty, and Jay. Have all been extreme competitors, but probably more than anything, I've been excited with their passion to improve, to be elite, to be a special player, you have to go above and beyond. And all of those guys have, really contributed in the success of what work they did this summer when people weren't watching. And what it looked like when there weren't people standing out there on the field assessing their efforts. Those guys have put in a lot of extra work.
Coach Lynn Harrington with Stay Alive Power 5. How you doing?
Doing great.
All right. To follow up on what you were talking about with the season opener going against your former team, are all the players fired up? It's not often, teams get to open up against the reigning national champs. And, what's the emotions and vibe around the team? Can you explain that?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't spent a ton of focus on game one. I know our players are certainly excited to be on a national stage early and get to play, obviously, an elite opponent in Georgia that we're really familiar with. But guess what? They're also familiar with me. But that being said, we're really focused on right now. And you can't play game one until you have practice one, right? So that's our next approach.
And to follow up on that, just with the Pac-12 against the SEC, do you think that this game is so important for, the Pac-12 overall, the national, perspective for you guys to go out and really put on a show and show what the Pac-12 is all about? And with this spring forward, your team to, run the table?
Our goal is to win every single game at the University of Oregon. So certainly it's an important game, just like every game's important. And then after that game, the next game will be the next most important game. So we're going to focus on that. Oregon, like I said, is a national brand, and it's fun to be in a place where you get to play premier opponents like Georgia.
Hey there, Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. Given the changes that are happening within the conference, within the sport itself, NIL, transfers, super conferences, conference realignment, all of that stuff, how do you feel about just the direction that the sport is headed?
Say that last part again, please.
How do you feel about the direction that the sport is headed overall?
Yeah, it seems to be ever-changing, doesn't it? I've been asked a couple times, what's it like being a first-year head coach, in this environment? And the one thing I'll say is it's probably pretty similar to being a 15-year head coach in this environment because everything's different. It continues to change. I think what we do at the University of Oregon is we continue to put the focus of the players first. And I certainly want to see our players maximize their opportunities, whether that be through name, image, likeness. I think we're positioned really well to be successful there. But we want to play elite competition. I trust George and our leadership in conference to continue to point us in the right direction there. But it's a fun, ever-changing day, and you always have to pay attention, and there's usually a headline when you wake up in the morning. So fun to adapt and be on your toes, and certainly different to coach in.
Eric Scopel, 24/7. Dan, speaking to that point, how many conversations or how have you addressed the conference realignment stuff with USC and UCLA leaving, and how often does that come up on the recruiting trail, and is that difficult to navigate at all?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a conversation, and like I said, I trust our leadership to be positioned for success. Oregon's always been, a premier team in college football, and I think we'll continue to be. Obviously, our fans are extremely passionate. Having being a top 10 team when it comes to views in homes this past year, and the ability to compete for championships year in and year out with, coaching changes and different things, that's still allowed Oregon to be at the forefront of competition. And that'll continue to be the case with our support outside of just the university, but also within the university.
Hello, Coach. Kenneth Berry, Touchdowns and Untitled Media. In regards to, obviously you spent a lot of time at Georgia. In Oregon, for years they chased USC, and obviously Georgia chased Alabama. But now that Oregon has kind of taken that next step, do you feel like they're still chasing, let's say, the ghost of USC's past success, or do you feel like Georgia, they've already kind of crossed that barrier and they're really just chasing their own shadow?
Yeah, we're not chasing anybody. We're trying to maximize ourselves. We're going to be the best team that we can possibly be in the year 2022. And our goal, like I said, is to win every single game. That's our goal. And we have the team and the ability to do it. Time will tell if we're able to, fill that void and do those things that are necessary to be successful.
And with all the success that Oregon has had taking top California talent, you get a guy like Justin Flo, best linebackers to come out of Cali. How do you, and you have, just a plethora of guys, how do you feel like that are they ready to take that next step? Do you feel like you have so much depth that it kind of could be anyone?
Can kind of what?
As far as like the talent, the guys that you have coming in from Cali, top flight talent, do you feel like it's just anyone's game, or do you feel like certain people are kind of differentiating themselves?
Ultimately, we want to recruit the best talent in the nation, right? And obviously, California is an important piece for us. It still is amazing to me how many kids I'll talk to. And the first time I talk to them, they tell me how Oregon has always been their dream school, right? This place is, like I said, a national brand. We're going to continue to go recruit nationally, but we want to win on the West Coast and keep the best players on the West Coast as well. And certainly we'll continue to recruit California. I'm excited about the guys we have on our program already and our roster already for their continued success and have high expectations for them.
And lastly, what's the biggest thing you took away from finally beating Alabama, and what's something that you've been hammering home to your players?
Obviously, I've had great experience in the last, year and the last several years of my coaching career, but I spend very little time talking about, the past. I'm really focused on the future. The one thing I'll say, about that game and the national championship game is our ability to adapt and change. You have to go back, and when you lose to an opponent, it gives you an opportunity to really reassess yourself. When I go back and talk about our theme for this season being growth, I think that's a big part of it. Being a growth mindset means you have to learn from successes and failures, right? And, we talked about it at the program I was at before. We'd go to the doctor after a win on Monday morning. We're going to do the same thing here at Oregon. We got to figure out what we can get better at, and hopefully you go to the doctor before you get sick. And that's certainly the goal for us.
Thank you.
Max Torres, Ducks Digest. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great.
You guys have added a number of cornerbacks from your 2022 signing class, Kamari Terrell, Jalil Tucker, to name a few. What have you seen from those guys since they arrived in the summer, and how do you think they can help your cornerback group going into this year?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you'll notice about all those guys that we added in that room this year is they all have speed, right? They all have speed and they have length and size, which, to me, in my experience, those are really dominating attributes to successful, corners. And if you have speed, you can make up for a lot of mistakes. I'm excited about those guys' work ethic. I think it's still early. There's a learning curve there, and not being able to go through all the spring with each of them makes it a little bit tougher, certainly. But it's a group that wants to be great. I have a lot of faith in their position coach, Demetrius Martin. He's done a great job, had a lot of success, and then our defensive staff to get those guys prepared and ready to roll.
And this is a big season for a number of reasons. You're getting your start as a head coach, as we all know. But also, I think it's big because of where Oregon's at with their championship window and, the timing of your arrival. What will success look like for you and the Oregon Ducks in 2022?
I think time will tell. Ultimately, I would tell you again, we need to win every single game we're supposed to win, but our goal is to win every one of them. And, I feel like we have the talent to be competitive in the games that we're going to play in. Doesn't mean we have to play our best game every single week, but we want to improve. I want to see measured growth. So what success look like for us? Are we making the same mistakes in week 10 that we make in week 1? Then I'd say no, right? If we're able to grow as a team and continue to develop and have that same mindset, I think that approach will be really special for us.
One more for you, Coach. You have a lot of versatile players on your defense. You have DJ Johnson here. Triquez Bridges is a guy that comes to mind. Jeffrey Bassa. When you're kind of getting the lay of the land of your defense, how do you think that versatility will really be able to help you?
Yeah, I believe in position versatility, and I believe in figuring out ways to have your best 11 players on the field. Another mantra of mine is always, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And if we have players that are good enough, we want to find a role for them on our team. Want to be able to have them contribute to our success. So when you have guys that can learn multiple positions, when you have guys that can move around and are smart and intelligent, at the end of the day, it only benefits your team whenever an injury occurs or a certain pressure package or personnel grouping can be changed to adapt to our strengths.
Eric Scopel, 24/7. I guess I'll say it again. To the injury front, Justin Flo, Brandon Dorlus, Popo Amavai were all limited or out for most of spring. Do you have any updates on those three?
Yeah, I won't spend a lot of time talking about injuries, but I will say all those guys are, are doing really well this summer, and we definitely think they're going to be a big part of what we're doing this season.
And then the last one from me is just on the transfer portal. Since we spoke last, additions of a couple offensive guys, Caleb Chapman and Bucky Irving. Can you speak to what those guys provide and maybe how much you expect they could impact this year's team?
Yeah, our focus obviously in the portal was to find guys that can make our program better and enhance our program, but also, marry that with the culture that we're instilling right now in our program, the investment in our culture. So those guys have been, phenomenal additions. They have great experience, in college football games. It's good to be able to lean on guys that have firsthand experience in games, and they're working really hard this summer. So I think we have 54 newcomers to our program this year. So obviously there's a returning roster of some great talent, but we also have some great additions like those guys.
Blaise Collin, the Blue Pennant, France and Quebec. You were talking about speed, and you're just coming from the SEC, and there's this saying, maybe it's a myth, that there's more speed in the SEC. So what's your assessment about that?
I can't speak to it, not playing in this conference right now, but I know that speed wins football games. And I know, we use GPS units every single day in practice and every workout, and we have some pretty good speeds out there. So I would say that we got some fast guys on our team, and that's something I'm excited about. I'm hoping the people we play don't have as many fast guys as us.
Hey, Coach. Will Decker from LA Football Network. You got to kind of pick your own staff as the head coach of Oregon. What made Kenny Dillingham the guy as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach to lead the Bo Nixes, the Ty Thompsons, and the rest of your quarterback room?
Yeah, Kenny's a guy I obviously have, a ton of respect for. We've been around each other since Arizona State. We worked together at Memphis. He's a guy I've talked ball with every offseason. We see the game very similar. Lee's a teacher. He's a guy that came up from grassroots, but obviously he's extremely intelligent and sees the game in a unique way. So really thrilled to bring him, aboard. There's a lot of people that obviously want to be a part of our program, but Kenny's the guy that made sense when it came to QB development and seeing the game the way I saw the game and having a system. I think those things really fit. So excited about the direction of our offense and the job he's done with our offensive staff. Obviously, there's some great pieces to that puzzle on that offensive staff with him, with Junior Adams, Drew Maringer, Carlos Lachlan, Adrian Clem, a lot of great experience on that side of the ball. It's going to help us be dynamic.
We have about 5 more minutes if anyone has any more questions.
Max Torres, Ducks Digest. Coach, when we were at this point about a year ago heading into fall camp in Eugene, the previous coaching staff was talking about getting to a dependable 2 deep. Obviously you're familiar with the roster now. What's that process look like for you now, getting to a dependable 2 deep across the board?
Yeah, in the spring, obviously we were down some guys. We had some injuries, so we didn't get to see every single player on our roster, really go through the spring and compete. And like I said, we have 54 newcomers, so some of those guys were able to practice with us and some weren't. That being said, that's our job as coaches, right? We're tasked with getting our guys ready to play and making sure that we ask them to incorporate systems that they can execute. So I think we have, like I said, I feel strongly that we have the roster to be effective. Obviously, any team that can be affected by injuries, we have to be able to adapt and put a great product out there on the field. And I think we're close to having, a good roster for that.
Derek Peterson, Saturday at West. Hey, Coach. Justin Flo was a preseason all-conference guy. Sort of speaks to just how much potential he seems to have. As you look at him, how do you see him fitting into your defense, and what makes him special?
Justin was another guy that I actually recruited while I was at Georgia, and obviously he's a dynamic athlete. He's a really talented player, a specimen, and I think at this point he's played 5 quarters. So I think Justin would tell you, hey, there's high expectations, and he hasn't been able to, execute the level he wants to yet because of injury. So, I have great belief in Justin as well as, all of our linebackers on our roster. We got a great group there, and that's something I have, good experience with. But I'm excited to see him to continue to develop. I'm glad that he's healthy and ready to go perform.
Hi, Coach. Gerard Moncure, Fox 11 here in Los Angeles. Obviously, kids come to schools for all different reasons. Coaches, facilities, the prestige of the of the program, which Oregon does have on a national level. They also come for the reputation of the conference, and I'm curious if you're concerned about the message that coaches will have to, I guess, maybe change about the Pac-12 with UCLA and USC leaving in a couple of years.
Yeah, I have zero concerns, from that angle and that front, just because I know how strong our brand and our product is, and I share a vision that our leadership in the conference and at our school shares. We're, like I've said, to start, Oregon's a brand that is national, and we're going to play premier programs year in and year out. There's some great storied history, obviously, in this conference, and I'm excited about that as that continues forward. The conference champions, the last 4 years are still in this conference, and that's something that I'm excited to see and compete against, especially for the next 2 years. I think the biggest way you control that narrative is you go and win games, and that's certainly our job at Oregon.
We have time for one last question.
Can I just follow up on, could you see the SEC and the Big Ten using this type of their super conferences against the Pac-12 schools, Pac-10 schools, in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, and ultimately, I could certainly see people using that, but that doesn't mean it's going to be effective, right? Because, again, as I said, Oregon's a brand that can stand alone, and it's a team that's competed for championships in the last 12 years. There's only, 8 other teams that can say that. So feel really confident in our product. We're a brand that's built and a school that's been built on innovation. We'll continue to be cutting edge, and those are all the reasons I came here in the first place.
Last question here for the gentleman with the mic.
Hey, Coach. Blair Angulo with 24/7 Sports. How would you describe the last 7 months as a recruiter now that you are a head coach?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun. It's fun piecing together the talent, and obviously we can recruit at a really high level, but it's also about bringing in coaches that are about relationships and development. And I feel really strongly we brought in a great coaching staff that is built on relationships, not just effort, not just a sales pitch. That's not our approach. It's built on real relationships. And when you have that, I think you can recruit at a high level. Certainly there's a lot of pieces that go into being a head coach, and you wear a lot of hats, but when you have a great team around you, it gives you a chance to be successful.
Okay. Coach, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.